Hi. Welcome to Amelia Thrift Store. The story of this community starts in late 2008. In late 2008, our pastor involved us in the study of Bishop Shinazi's 5 practices for fruitful congregations. And when we got to the section on risk-taking mission, man, we got prayerful. We made a list of 25 things that we might do to help our community, and nobody agreed. There were about 12 of us in that study, and we all had different opinions. We were very torn for food ministry. There had been articles in the paper for several months in a row that the food wouldn't be given out because of lack of funds. But we also had done our homework and found out that the food bank could buy food cheaper than we could through the Virginia Food Bank, and that we would be better off to raise money than to collect cans. So we, after several weeks of prayer, we settled on the Amelia Thrift Store as our mission to generate money. So we had 3 goals, and you can see on the poster behind me, this is posted in our store for the last 9 years of what our mission is. And I updated it a year or so ago to give the new people in the thrift store a sense of what our mission is. But it's 3 parts there. It says that we sell only donated items, and that allows us to not collect sales tax. And we pay no salaries, and we give away all of our money. So to establish the thrift store, first our pastor passed around a blank piece of paper and asked families to sign that piece of paper if they would be responsible for the lease in our first location if we couldn't pay it. Our first lease was $500 a month. It was a tiny little store. And everybody signed it, and then he borrowed Ginghamsburg United Methodist Church, Mike Slaughter's idea of Christmas is not your birthday. And in his little 3-point charge, he challenged families to give as much to this foundling ministry as they did to their family. And in those 3 tiny churches, we raised $10,000, which was amazing to start the thrift store. We have held part of that back. We have 5,000 of it still in our treasury today. That's our seed money. And the idea is there, if any tragedy strikes, the thrift store will stay open. And we've also been meeting once a month to decide where the funds, we look at the net proceeds and we empty our treasury, except for that cushion. We empty our treasury and give away all of the money. We started calling that the servant meeting, where we discussed the operation of the store and how it would run. And after several years, we now, that's part of our church leadership team's responsibility. But we still, anyone can come to the meeting, and anyone can ask for the money, and in the community knows about that, and we get requests occasionally for those funds. Now, I passed around a volunteer list, and I got from those 3 little churches 40 people to sign up saying we would volunteer, and most of them did give some time. We were very naive in the beginning. For every 100 hours, we got this idea from another church who celebrated whenever anybody worked 10 hours in mission. We decided to, on our name tags, we had for 100 hours of service, you got a little red bow. And then for 200 hours, orange and yellow. And we continued until your rainbow's full. Well, after everybody had a rainbow, we just dropped that program altogether. What happened working in the thrift store is it changed people's lives. It just totally changed who we are and how we think, because we had a way to interface with the community for the first time. We had a way to interface with the community, and in a way that wasn't church. And it changed who we were. We went from that tiny store. A year later, we leased a space in a second store, and we called that Thrift Store 2, TOO, but we didn't have enough servants to run 2 stores, so we eventually gave up the lease on our first tiny store and rented more space in the second building, and quadrupled the space that we had. People changed, and that same group of people started a church. That same group of people said, the church building we have is landlocked. The church building that we have is off the beaten path. No one can find it. We can't grow. It's falling down. It has a white history, and we want to be a diverse church, open to all, and we want to be on the highway. And our dream was to be a church of 500. How did that happen? Every morning we open the thrift store with prayer. So the servants come together, and we express our joys and concerns, and we pray for the day, and we pray for the people who will come through the door. We pray with the community service workers who come. We pray with the customers who may have already arrived. Some customers know that we do that and arrive early so they can be a part of that. We have a prayer jar. We collect prayers. There's one in the jar right now. Let's see what it says. Sometimes we take these home. We pray over them. Sometimes we take them to church. This one says, I need prayer for my great-grandchildren. Gwen Hurt. So Gwen is asking for prayers for her great-grandchildren, and she's sure that those prayers will be held up, and they will be. Sometimes we pray with the people in the store when they share their lives with us. We certainly listen to their life, and we try to befriend them. I mentioned the community service workers. The court system appoints people here, and that's been a blessing because usually they're young people with strong backs, and most of us are retired, and the donations keep flowing in. Let me give you a little quick tour of the, let's see if I can. So let's take a tour. This, I'm standing at the jewelry counter, and in front of me is the aisle of, looks like pots and pans. Let's go around this way. We have a bulletin board here where we have more furniture and more items in other rooms. Glassware. We have a second room with some Easter items. And in the second room, we have some clothing, especially like nurses' uniforms and children's clothes, and some furniture. Furniture is really important. We've just been blessed by so many donations. The donations just keep coming. We have a carport. We have 2 motel rooms and a shipping container that we cannot possibly keep empty. Everything is just keeps coming. And this, I didn't mention, this is our newest location. This is a building that we own, so that the money now for rent is paying our mortgage. So that's an awesome thing. And I just wanted to point this out. I'm very proud of this little signage when you come in the door, because there isn't much in the way of bilingual signage in our community. You see it in other places like California and Texas, but here in our little community, this is highly unusual, and just a way of welcoming our Hispanic friends and letting them know that we're thinking of them and they're welcome here. When people in our community are lonely, they come here to talk. When people in here have something to celebrate, they come here to celebrate. When people are sad, they come here for consolation. The Amish, the Mennonite shop here, the Hispanic community shops here, people with disabilities shop here. We're fully accessible. Black and white people shop here. This is a very accepting community, and the community has responded to that. We have inexpensive priced items for those who can't afford it. Jeans are $4, shoes are $3, children's books are 50 cents, children's shoes, children's items, $1. We also have collectibles. Some people donate very expensive items to us, and so we have collectibles, and the people with more money buy those things. So we do recycle. We keep a lot of things out of the dump. We provide retail in a rural community where there is no Walmart. Very little retail. And we have changed the community. When we first started, we posted pictures in the newspaper every time we gave away money of the person receiving the check. And we wanted the word to get out that we give away, not to individuals, but to nonprofits and to groups that are doing well. We learned early on that we couldn't really pay individual electric bills, but we found ways. We started a prescription drug program. We found ways to make sure that individuals are taken care of. What we've seen is an increase. There are now lots of organizations who give lots of donations. People at the community newspaper and in the social services department have told us that the community has changed. People have opened up their pocketbooks, and there is more gratitude and more giving than they've seen in their history. You can see on the board behind me that we've given away. Now, it's probably, I haven't done the math, but I'm sure it's over $200,000. It's taken us 9 years. But, you know, I was thinking the other day that I volunteer here 1 day a week. That's 6 hours. And that's as much time as I spend in worship in a month. Our worship services last about an hour and a half, 4 times 4, about 6 hours. And I do that in 1 day here. So no, I may not be worshiping. I may not be the entire time. I might be sorting through dirty clothes. But sometimes I'm talking and I'm listening to the shoppers and to the community service workers and to the other servants that work here. Not everybody who works here belongs to our church. Most of the regular volunteers are churched, but they belong to different United Methodist churches, Baptist churches, in and around our community. Some drive there are several who drive as many as 45 minutes to come and volunteer here. The saddest day here was the day that Pat passed away. A lady in her 80s, she took the challenge when we planted the church to be a missionary for 1 year and support us with her presence and her gifts and her service. After a year, she went back to her lifelong church, excited by what she could do. After about 6 months, when she found out that they didn't have a heart to listen to how she had grown and how she would like to do mission, she came back to us. She joined our church, and she volunteered regularly at the thrift store. She was a vibrant woman, and one day, leaving the thrift store extremely exhausted, she went out into the highway without stopping at the stop sign and hit another vehicle. Fortunately, the person in the other vehicle wasn't injured, but she died instantly. For the next hour, people gathered at the thrift store. There were at least 20 people just grieving and praying together. That's where people knew to come to the thrift store. So I hate to end on that sad note, but I think that what we have formed here is an intentional community. One more note, I'll just say that one of the reasons that we planted the church was because our conference gave out cards one year when they were trying to promote the idea of building all these new faith communities with a goal. And they listed the things that a faith community had to have. And our thrift store manager at the time and my husband, the pastor of his church, said, they looked at each other and they said, what are we doing that isn't on this list? We're doing it all except worship. And the manager of the store said, we can fix that. And that's when they planted the seed to start a new church. Because in their mind, the thrift store, our conference had said the thrift store is not a church. Okay, I'll end on that note because this is way long enough. And thank you for listening.